Welcome to our Thursday afternoon live. The difference is typically the herniated disc can aggravate more nerves, but they're equally as painful. So, typical spine, we're just going to do a little bit of the anatomy. The anatomy is important because you need to know what everything is. Typical spine looks like this. Between the head and the hips, there's 24 vertebrae. The vertebrae are the bones. In between each bone, there's a disc. So you have discs in your neck, you have discs in your mid-back, you have discs in your low back. Discs are in between the vertebrae. Spinal cord runs down through the inside of the spine and through the opening between each vertebrae. There's an opening called the foramen, and like a jelly donut. One vertebrae on top of the other with the disc in between. The outer portion of the disc, there's a thick material. Inside the disc, there's a jelly-like substance. Now, it's very important to understand that there are little nerve endings on the outer portion of the disc. And when I say it's on the outer portion of the disc, this would be one vertebrae on top of the other. Here's the disc right here. So the outer portion is like a sleeve all the way around the disc of this network of nerves. And the network of nerves are the sinovertebral nerves, and they're responsible for telling the brain that there's something wrong. So this network of nerves travels the entire length of the disc, all the way around, like a sleeve. So it goes all the way around the disc. Now, what happens is the inner portion of the annulus, okay, so the annulus is the thick material, the jelly-like substance is the nucleus. This annulus can tear and can start to break down and start to lose its strength, and it doesn't support the way it should. And as it starts to break down, what happens is the nucleus will start to push. And as the nucleus starts to push, it'll start to stretch that network of nerves that surround the disc. And stretching of this network of nerves that surround the disc is painful. So we know that the bulging disc can be painful and the herniated disc can be painful, but it starts typically in the area of the inner annulus and the nucleus pushing out. And as it starts to push out, you'll develop a little tear. And then that tear, with a decrease in stability in the outer portion of the annulus, will cause the annulus to push out. Looks kind of like this. Okay, the other view, this view here is the side view. So we're looking at one vertebrae on top of the other with the disc here, with the nucleus and the outer portion of the annulus and the nerves here. This is the top view. So now we're looking at it from this view right here. So what happens is very often that little tear will start to push out a little bit. And as it starts to push out, it'll create a bulging of the disc. So the bulge typically is more broad-based, meaning it might be a little bit wider than, say, the herniation. The herniations tend to be more focused in one spot because it tears further through, and then you get more annulus pushing out. But typically, a bulge is measured by distance. How far out does the disc material push into the spinal canal? Typically, 3 millimeters and less is considered a bulging disc. So if this, between the two vertebrae where the discs are, if there's a smooth transition here, okay, this would be a healthy disc. But what happens is sometimes is that annulus will start to push out a little bit, and as it starts to push out, that's then the bulging disc. So the disc will start to bulge. It'll start to push out this way. And as it pushes out, what does it do? It stretches that network of nerves and you have pain. So the one thing about a bulging disc is you very often have a very specific back pain. Okay? You have back pain because you have stressing of those nerves as they run along the facet or along the outer portion of the disc. So the nuclear material starts to push out, the annulus pushes out 3 millimeters. Now, if it goes more than 3 millimeters, that's technically considered the herniation. So it's the size of the bulge that dictates whether it's a bulge or a herniation, because as it starts to push out further, very often what happens is you'll get more tearing of the annulus, And as you get more tearation is 3 millimeters and more, but at that point in time, it's going to start to compromise the nerve as it exits through the foramen. So what does that mean? It means with the herniation, you're going to get aggravation to those nerves. So you're going to have back pain. Okay, but also what you're going to have is you're going to have a pinched nerve, the sciatic nerve, which comes off of the spinal cord, which is different than the nerves along the disc. And that pinching of the sciatic nerve then causes pain in the back, into the hip, down the leg, sometimes into the foot. So you'll very often with the herniated disc, you'll have two different types of pain. Okay? With the bulging disc, you'll get a bulge of the annulus, pushes out further, sometimes tears all the way through and pinches the nerve. That's what's happening right here. The nucleus has gone all the way out, now it's pinching the nerve. So with bulging discs, you get generalized back pain, but with herniated discs, very often you get the back pain in conjunction with the pain that goes into the hip, down to the leg, sometimes all the way down into the foot. Now here's what it looks like. This is a healthy disc right here. One vertebrae on top of the other. What you want is a smooth transition. Okay? There's no bulge here. You can see everything's in a straight line. Now as we come down here, it's pushing out. Not quite 3 millimeters, so we know that's a bulge. It's bulging out right here. But down here you can see it's pushed out further, more than 3 millimeters. So it's the distance that the annulus pushes out into the spinal canal. So we're looking at it from this view right here. I mean, technically it's an MRI, so you don't see the outer bone here. What we do is we see just the spinal canal. But it's this distance that the annulus pushes out into the spinal canal that is the bulging disc. Just like down here, nucleus pushing out even further, causing it a larger, sort of a focal point where it's herniated into the canal and it's pinching the nerves. Now we have the ability to treat both these problems. If you have a bulging disc and or a hernia disc, we have the ability by having you take pressure off the disc. So we take pressure off the disc and we have you do exercise. There is no drugs and there is no surgery. It's sort of advanced physical therapy. We're really taking a lot of pressure off. So we can get that nuclear material to move back and take the pressure off the disc and move back to the inside. So what it does is you have less pain from the aggravation of the annulus, but also you have less pain on that nerve because what it does is it frees up the nerve. So we have the ability to take that off, both for the bulging disc and the hernia disc. So we can make the bulging disc better, and we can make it feel better, more importantly, because it's not just about the bulging disc, it's how you feel, but we can also make the herniated disc better. And we talk a lot about the different types of patients that we treat in the case studies, and we're going to probably do a case study tomorrow, maybe earlier, sort of mid-afternoon, so that'll be live on both YouTube and Facebook, so you can check that out. So the difference is how far the nuclear material pushes out into the spinal canal. The further it pushes out, it's herniated. Less is bulge. That's it. You got it. Any more questions, put them in the comments. Any concerns, put them in the comments. Anything else, we'll take care of it. Have a good day. Goodbye, and we'll see you.